Hello, this is Goku for System 1, and I'm back this time with a One Piece theory video on who the next Nakama or crew member will be on the One Piece crew. And so I do think there are some real possibilities here. There will be spoilers throughout. I am caught up. I have read the newest chapter, 796. If you're not caught up, you might not want to watch this video because there's going to be spoilers throughout. I'm going to be talking about things that have happened recently, and I'm going to be talking about, obviously, this chapter, the possibilities of who would be joining the crew. But let me start out the video by saying who will definitely join the crew. We all know who's going to be the next crew member. Debunking Law. No. He will never be joining the crew. I could have told you that when I found out he was a doctor. It doesn't make sense. We have Tony Chopper on the freaking crew. He's not ever going to join the crew. He is an ally. He's part of the Alliance, and I think he's going to be there to stay. There was a time period I thought he was not going to be there to stay. That time period has long passed. I do think he's going to be here to stay. I do think he's going to be an ally to the very end of the series. But now let's get into the actual real possibilities. I'm going to go from least to greatest because I do think I already know who the next crew member is, and I'm not being satirical. I honestly do think I know who it is, and it might not be everybody's favorite, but I do think I know who it is. So let's start out with the least is Viola. Viola is not going to join the crew. I didn't think she was going to join the crew. She's not going to join the crew. People have come up with great theories. Go watch Roger's Base video breaking down all the possibilities, and he can tell you why she won't be joining the crew. He goes into a lot more detail. I'll probably link that video below here because I think it's the best video on who will be joining the crew after Dressrosa. Beyond that, a lot of people say I forget how it's pronounced. I always pronounce it Leo, but it's Leo, I think. It's Leo. Leo's not going to join the crew. He has his own thing, and it's Mancheri. He's to protect Mancheri. That's his journey. That's his thing. That's what he wants to do in life. So I certainly don't think he's joining the crew. I absolutely do not think he's a possibility. Then obviously there's Cavendish. Cavendish is a possibility, but I think he's less likely, and recent chapters made it seem nearly impossible. I don't think he's joining the crew. Not in any sense of the word, but it would be interesting. And I also think his power is a little bit too weird. I don't know how you do that in the long term, because he will actually attack members of the crew, so that would be bad. It would be kind of like what they did with Tony Chopper, but at least that was a very restricted thing that was used very, very rarely, and now he can control it. So, but this is something that seems like can come out a lot more commonly because we've already seen it twice. And he hasn't even joined the freaking crew. We hadn't seen Tony Chopper's ability until much, much later. So, yeah, I don't think he's joining the crew in any sense of the word. Now let's get into the top three. One of these people I do believe is joining the crew. I think one of these is our next member, our next Nakama. I do think one of these is going to be our next Nakama. The first one is Bellarmine. Bellarmine certainly is on that list of possible. I don't think he's likely. I just don't see him. But he is possible. He is certainly in the top three. He is certainly possible. I personally don't see it. And one of the things that a friend of mine, who is not caught up, but we were chatting about the next Nakama, and one of the things he came up with, I mentioned Bellarmine's name, and he said, well, every single crew member has joined in their perspective arc. Now, that's not true. One member did join in the perspective saga, but they've all joined soon after being introduced. Bellarmine was introduced right before Sky Island, Skypiea. And so, if that is going to continue, obviously, yes, there's one member that might join that, but he did say, I'm joining the crew, but I have to go off and do something, so that might technically do that. So he might technically be disqualified if that rule is to hold. But it might not. He might join the crew, but I don't see it because I think the other two are so much more possible. The next one is probably the one I want to join the crew the most. I think he would be really interesting in the crew. I do think he holds a little bit of problems joining the crew, and that's Bartolome. And the problems with Bartolome, if you've read this chapter, you'll notice that he was kind of like hard. He kind of has less focus when there's a lot of Straw Hats in one room. And he would sacrifice himself to save any member of the crew. Do you want somebody on the crew like that? Do you want somebody who would sacrifice the possibility of their life for a Straw Hat? You might have that, but I don't think that's likely. So I don't think he's going to join the crew. He might, but we'll have to wait and see. He's certainly a possibility. He's certainly a candidate, and he's certainly my number 2. So if number 1 doesn't join the crew, I do think one of these is joining the crew, and I do think he is certainly the second most likely out of all the possibilities. Now let's get into our most likely, who I absolutely do think is joining the crew. I do think this character 100%, or 90%, sorry, not 100, 90% will be joining the crew. I think the last chapter, 795 had clues to this character joining the crew, and this is a female character, so yes, everybody knows who I'm talking about. A lot of people don't like her. I like her, and that's Rebecca. The clue I'm talking about is, you're going to be princess. I don't remember the exact line, but you're going to be princess, and she said, I believe, what, without the T? More so being shocked, and that's not what I think she wants to do. And she's already gotten word that her father's not going to be in her life. And so I don't think she's going to be a princess. I don't think this is what her journey was. I don't think this is what she wants to be. And then Luffy in this chapter said, I got to go do something. And what does he have to do? Of course, he has to go see Rebecca. Whatever that is, Rebecca and them are going to do something. They're going to say goodbye, or he's going to be, do you want to join my crew? And if he does, she'll join. I think she'll join. I think she wants to join, and I think she'd make a really good member. And a lot of people saying she's like this crybaby. Well, if you think about it, here's my defense for her not being a crybaby. When she started crying, when she started getting emotional, is when a lot of stuff was dumped on her at once. And most people would break up at that point. It's very common. I don't think she was bad written. I think we wanted to see her badass because she was badass before all that. When she was in the Coliseum, she was always badass, and I think she'll be badass. It's just a lot of things came into it at once, and a lot of stuff, and she found out all the horrible things that happened to her in her life to get to this point. All at pretty much at once. So yeah, I don't think she's a crybaby. I think she just too much was poured on her at once, and she didn't know how to combat it. She didn't know how to emotionalize it. And so she cried. She became emotional. Other characters have become emotional. And a lot of people say she's the Vivi of the arc. I disagree with that. I think that is the 2 samurai characters. And the reason I didn't mention them, I don't know their name off the top of my head. I probably could think of them, but yeah. The reason I didn't mention them is because if any of the samurais join the crew that's going to be in Wano Country in the next arc, so no, they're not joining the crew this time, but they are certainly possible. I don't think they are. I do think we are going to get at least 2 more crew members by the end of the series, if not 3, maybe even 4. We are going to get definitely more crew members. And yeah, and I do think in the next chapter we are getting our next crew member. Please leave a comment below. Tell me who you think is going to be joining the crew, if you think anybody is going to be joining the crew, and who you would like to join the crew, even if they're not a realistic possibility, like Law. Law would be awesome, but he's never joining the crew. This is Goku for this one, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.